Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Privacy Conversation. My name is Siobhan Joell, and I am a partner and chief data officer at the TLC Group of Companies. This evening, I am joined by several privacy experts for the ultimate privacy conversation. Let's start with our first guest, and that is none other than the privacy commissioner of Bermuda, Mr. Alexander White. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Siobhan. Thanks so much. I'm very excited to be here and talking with the crowd that you've assembled. I used to call myself the new privacy commissioner, but as Melanie pointed out, I just hit my 1 year mark. And along with the fact that I've already had gone through the falling off your bike and getting road rash and all that good stuff. So I don't think I'm new anymore. I think I'm just the privacy commissioner. But thanks so much. I'm really excited to be here. In case my accent hasn't given me away, I am from the States originally. I worked in state government, building a privacy program and also advising at the federal level. And prior to that, I worked in insurance and got the privacy bug from cyber risk and cyber liability.
Oh, well, welcome, Alex, and we're excited to have you on the call this evening. And next, we have the lovely Melanie Fullerton, the senior associate at Walker's Bermuda, and she is also a former participant of our privacy officer course. So welcome, Melanie. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Siobhan. It's great to be here, so thank you for having me on. As you mentioned, I'm a senior associate at Walker's Bermuda. I sit specifically in Walker's regulatory and risk advisory practice, which is a pretty unique practice across Bermuda. I think we might be the only company that has a dedicated regulatory and risk advisory practice. And part of that is to advise on all financial regulatory matters, but also things like privacy. So as when Alex was appointed and we knew that data privacy and protection would be coming into effect, I took a keen interest to it, did your course, which was fantastic. I recommend it to everyone who's listening who might be interested in learning a bit more about privacy. And yeah, just continue to develop from there. So thank you very much for having me today.
And thank you for joining us, Alex and Melanie. In addition to our lovely guests, we have some of our privacy officers from the TLC group with us as well this evening. So I'll start with Jeanette Matthews. Jeanette, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Siobhan. Yes, my name is Jeanette Matthew. I have recently joined TLC Group as one of their privacy officer consultants. My background is in human resources, where I have nearly 2 decades of experience in both operational and strategic HR. And I'm really pleased to note that I've recently passed my SIPM examination, and I'm looking forward to really and looking forward to really delving into the world of privacy operations and program management. So thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Next, we have Tracey Simmons. She's also a privacy officer with the TLC Group. Tracey, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. I'm also a recent graduate of TLC. I'm basically split between privacy and cybersecurity. In my past life, I was a senior business risk compliant analyst. I help organizations do what they do better. So it's great to be sitting on a panel with people who have the same privacy passion as I do.
Absolutely. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Mr. Brad Collins, who is also a privacy officer. Brad?
Good evening, everyone. Like Jeanette and Tracey, I'm also almost a recent graduate of the recent course, just a few more things to tie up at the end. And I've recently joined TLC Group as a privacy officer. I am new to this industry. Previous to this, I was primarily in operations and really excelled in sort of organizational leadership, policy, and procedure. and privacy is a new passion of mine, and I'm excited to see how this grows and expands in Bermuda, and I feel lucky to be part of this.
Well, thank you very much, Brad, for joining, and welcome to the entire panel as we begin this conversation, and it's called the Privacy Conversation because so many organizations, they're just trying to wrap their heads around how do we begin injecting more privacy, enhancing our privacy posture. And so just to get that conversation started, often I've talked with business owners and business leaders, and they may find it difficult to have those privacy conversations. So that is what we're going to talk about this evening. So the featured topics are how to develop a business case for privacy. So if you want to introduce training, awareness, and a program, how to adopt buy-in at every level, and then how to introduce a privacy and cyber program. So let's talk right in. Let's start with that first question, and I'll start with Alex here. How to develop a business case for privacy? Again, we're thinking about training, awareness, programs, development. What do you advise organizations to do, Alex, to get that, at least get that conversation going and developing that business case?
Yeah, you listed a couple of great things that organizations should be sure to do. And to make sure we don't leave anyone behind, I'll do a quick rundown of kind of what makes up a privacy program. And to give a shameless plug, I have a blog post. My website's privacy.bm. There's a blog post called What is a Privacy Program that goes into a lot more depth on this. So please do check that out if you're interested. Not that I know no one on this call needs it, but maybe someone in the audience. So first up, conducting an inventory or classifying, just figuring out what information you have, because everything you do is going to be built off of that. That's how you determine what your risk of harm to individuals are, or what it is you need to protect just by knowing what you have. And so then you want to document what your policies and procedures are. What are employees supposed to be doing, and how do you hold them to that? You mentioned training and awareness. That's a great example of something that you have general training for everyone, but also role-specific training for each different job that people have. Assessing privacy risk, doing things like privacy impact assessments, and developing plans for incident response and plans for how to respond to data subject rights requests for things like access or editing data or something like that. So the reason why I wanted to go through that whole list is because these are not, revolutionary concepts that businesses have no experience with. We are very familiar with inventorying our systems or inventorying our goods and making sure that we know how many widgets do we have or how many of something else do we have. And so I think that's where when we talk about privacy, it's not so much that we're creating something new as we're just incorporating it in a new way and saying, well, data is something that's valuable. Data, I should be protecting it just like I'm protecting the stock back in the stock room, or just like I'm protecting the money in a bank, those dollar bills. Everything has value, and so I need to make sure I'm protecting it in that way. So you do an inventory, you understand how much you have, and you may be able to tack on your privacy inventory to some other existing type of inventory or some other workflow. Similarly, with training and awareness, for example, HR, human resources, may already do a regular training and awareness program, and they may have onboarding where they train employees when they first come on. And so you may be able to incorporate the privacy program into that. So that's where I would start. Just from an efficiencies perspective, think about this as you're not trying to build this program from the ground up and first you lay the concrete and then you put in the posts. There's already a structure there. and you're just trying to figure out how can we incorporate privacy into that structure, and where would it fit, and where is it just, are we just decorating because what's there is already so good? And by using that, you do some great things, which is you make friends because you're telling other people in your organization how important their work is and how you would like to support them do their job. And oh, by the way, can you help me do mine too? And also, you're making your business case look better because you're not talking about building something from scratch. You're talking about making some subtle changes, making some slight additions in order to improve what you're trying to accomplish.
Thank you for that, Alex. Tracey, so, best practice, a business case should demonstrate the value to the corporation, benefits of the privacy preserving approach and related activities to the bottom line should really be presented when you're trying to present a business case. What are your thoughts about that? You might be on mute, Tracey, sorry.
And of course I am. Sorry
There
about
you
that. Yeah.
Welcome.
So absolutely, any business case should be able to demonstrate that there is value add. There is going to be benefit to the business. So any business case should actually start with the benefits. So it may not even be qualitative, it may be quantitative benefits that can be applied. So these need to be listed out respectively. So sometimes it may just be that, for example, the way that you collect names, it may be that can be changed to be ID numbers. Show the value add of that change. And hopefully, with the business case, it is an iterative document as well. So business cases change. I mean, the landscape of privacy is changing all the time.
Absolutely. Melanie, did you want to chime in with any thoughts in terms of developing a business case for privacy?
Yeah, this might be a bit harsh and might be due to my background in enforcement, but sometimes if you have a stubborn board of directors or a board that is very conscious of their spending and wants to do the bare minimum to meet any legal and regulatory requirements, it's very helpful sometimes to present the consequence of not complying, not only in a quantitative fashion, as in, if we don't do this, this is the fine that could be imposed. But more damaging most of the time is the reputational damage to the company. You don't want to be on the front page of Royal Gazette as the first entity to be, not compliant with PIPA or for any other reason. So sometimes we see that can be quite effective, but even though it's a bit hard line and a bit dramatic, it should definitely form part of your business case that you are presenting to your board or senior management or whoever is making the decisions as to adequate resourcing for implementing privacy. But I would just echo that, it's really good to get the whole company involved and make it relatable to every employee. It's not just a compliance officer issue or a, head of department issue. It's something that definitely has to feed from all aspects of the company, because everyone, I'm sure, in the company will touch personal data at some point. So it's really just empowering everybody in the entity to kind of get on board and see their value in compliance. So.
Absolutely. Brad, did you have anything that you think the group have missed when thinking about developing a business case for privacy?
I'm not sure if anything's missed. I do like the differences. I liked the part about the value, and then obviously about the ramifications of not being in compliance and having to trying to work with either what what their value is. Are they
Mm-hmm.
all about cost and money, or are they a little bit more innovative or understanding, and they can see other things related, not related to cost specifically. And I had taken sort of some notes on value, so I think that was more where I was leaning towards and presenting in that sort of way.
Thank you, Brad. And speaking of value, Jeanette, the value of information and customers, is that something that's worth talking about when you're developing a business case?
Absolutely, Siobhan. Like Melanie had mentioned, we really want to focus on reputation. A business's reputation is earned over time. And certainly by embarking upon a privacy program, we can ensure that customers feel some degree of trust and confidence that their personal data is being appropriately managed by an organization with which they're in contact. Certainly the same can apply for employees. When employees know what privacy is about and how it impacts them as individuals and how they can contribute to an organization's compliance, it makes it much easier for them to be able to interact with clients in a responsible manner and ensuring that everyone's individual rights are being maintained. Most definitely. I think one of the things that I would mention is that when we are trying to build a business case with the C-suite, we really should also talk about the opportunities for expanded growth. As other jurisdictions implement privacy legislation, if businesses locally are not compliant, they may lose opportunities to be able to interact with overseas organizations. And so there is both a loss and a gain that can be had from embarking on a privacy program.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. I think there's been some really helpful information to get that conversation started. Alex, I see yourself off of mute. Did you want to chime in and add any final words before we move to the next question?
Yeah, there have been a lot of great points in this conversation, and I just wanted to emphasize how much I love hearing this positive case for privacy, because it can very often become something where compliance is seen as a sunk cost, and it's just something you've got to throw money at because the law says so. But in fact, there's so much evidence to show that organizations with privacy programs are more profitable, and there are ways that you can calculate what the return on your investment might be. And so, if I could make one more shameless plug for my blog, privacy.bm, that's our official website, and then we have a blog that's called Privacy Means Business: How Investing in a Privacy Program Pays Off. And we actually break down some of the math that organizations have utilized, where you say, well, if the average data breach costs this amount and a privacy program is able to reduce the chance of a data breach by a certain percentage, then we can figure out how much money we're saving, what our ROI really is. Alternatively, there's some statistics you can pull from that article on my blog about how privacy programs help to make sales better and help to convince people that you are a trusted partner, like has been discussed in this conversation. So if you need some statistics that you can draw from, feel free to use those that are up on my site.
No, that's great. And Alex, you touch on such a really important point that once you mentioned at the very beginning, inventory. Once you know your data, then you can really make it work for you, because you can make some really good business decisions when you are clear of what types of information you hold and how where it sits in terms of value. So thank you very much to all of you. I think you've certainly given some excellent food for thought as businesses start to develop that conversation. the Privacy Commissioner of Bermuda, Alexander White, along with a wonderful panel of privacy experts, including Melanie Fullerton of Walkers Bermuda. So here we come to our second question, or discussion for the evening. It's not quite a question, but you know, Melanie, I ask you, when we think about buy-in, you know, we talk often about, you know, the importance of, you know, the top level buy-in, but what does it look like to adopt buy-in at all levels across an organization?
I think this is really important, and we kind of spoke to it in our previous discussion to answer the first question, but I think some of the hurdles that you have to acknowledge that you have to get over in an organization are sort of that compliance fatigue. You know, oh gosh, this is another thing I have to comply with, or this is more stuff I have to worry about on a day-to-day basis from employees potentially. But hopefully you can come up with innovative ways in your company to really spark an interest and make it more appealing to employees. This can be really simple things like, you know, sometimes you have lunch and learns or breakfast meetings where you can always supply employees with food. That tends to keep them engaged. And have a private.
Tried and true, isn't it, Melanie?
You can host, you know, really small sort of training seminars to build the education and sort of build the interest. Obviously, I appreciate these take time, but you know, your employees are essentially your first line of defense when it comes to any compliance program. So you want to ensure that they are in tune to what needs to be done and be keen to do it. You can also host, you know, like quizzes between departments. So as your training program develops, maybe you have one team, you split your company into different teams, which can be a really great team building exercise, especially during this time when everyone's been working remotely and you're sort of might be feeling a bit disconnected. Get on a Zoom, set up different rooms, have a quiz on data privacy and what it means for your organization, and sort of build, you know, do this as a building exercise before you say, okay, here are our policies and procedures. This is how it's going to relate to your position. Just start building an interest. And maybe people will start to explore on their own. And then you sort of get this compliance built in from everyone at all levels. What we've seen from our clients previously is it's really particular to data privacy and protection, is it's not just, for example, in a law firm, the fee earners, or it's not just an accountancy firm, you know, the accountants. You need to have, you know, your front reception staff involved. You need to have anybody that's dealing with third-party service providers involved. This is really a whole company effort. That sort of front of house person could be the most important person when it comes to data privacy and protection. If you think of sort of a medical office or a school reception or some, you know, those are people that are dealing with the most sensitive data on a day-to-day basis versus, you know, somebody that's sitting in the background, not client-facing potentially. So getting everyone involved, making everyone feel a part of this data privacy and protection, you know, onboarding in the company can really help. I think the other important thing is to not just only educate staff and get them interested, but to break it down. I think we touched on this before, but you know, what I like to do is sort of take the obligations, break them down. I think we spoke about before, applying those obligations to what already is in your organization. Alex spoke to, you know, maybe you have HR training anyway. So maybe this is just an extra slide or something that you add, you know, over the top, rather than feeling that you have to start from the ground up all over again. Looking to see how you can kind of seed it into what you already do as an organization, just to make it a bit more palatable. I think I always relate data privacy and building a compliance framework back to the introduction of anti-money laundering in Bermuda, because everyone was like, oh my God, no way, this is never going to work. And now it's just natural. You know, you wouldn't think of going anywhere without your passport and, you know, proof of ID or whatever. So the more sort of normal you can make it and less onerous, whilst not reducing the importance of it, would be the most effective way.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you so much, Melanie. And I think you make a really good point. I love the fact when you talked about starting with the awareness before you introduce change. Because again, that makes total sense if you think about it. If people feel as if it's second nature, or it makes, it goes in really well with the way that they have been functioning all this time, then it just, it's just an extra thing that they will learn and build into their current processes. So I really think that's a good point. Jeanette, did you want to add anything to Melanie's response
I think
here?
Melanie must have been an HR manager in her previous life, because she touched on so many really good points. I think really Melanie said it all. Make it fun, make it a part of everyday life. Ensure that you can show the value before you necessarily focus too much on the compliance portion of privacy. And you never know who may become a privacy champion in your organization. You may spark someone's interest, not only in becoming a privacy champion, but maybe even a privacy practitioner. So it's a good opportunity for organizations to really embed this in their day-to-day activities.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeanette, for that. Alex, Jeanette talked about privacy champions. How important are privacy champions in helping with buy-in?
Yeah, I think that's they're so important. And what Jeanette and Melanie were describing about getting, saying what's the point, and helping people understand what are we really trying to accomplish and why is privacy important to our organization. And that won't resonate with everybody, I know, but it will resonate with a lot of people. And they will understand things like valuing the customer, or they will understand the things like treating employees with respect, because in both cases, you have to use personal information. And so those individuals in the different departments and the different parts of an organization who are willing to do this kind of issue spotting, it's so critical, because then they can, assuming the organization does have a formal, privacy officer or a privacy function, then you can have those kinds of kind of issue spotting contacts, and they can say, hey, this happens the other day, and I don't think we have a policy for that. I think it's something we should explore more, or I think this is something maybe we need to change even. But one aspect I would encourage everyone is, and I know this is the dream scenario, but if you can make your CEO a privacy champion, then you're really living pretty. And so, because no one listens so much as when the CEO says, this is important to me. And she says, and you're going to all follow these rules that we're creating because this is important. This is part of who we are. And can you get it in the mission statement? Can you get it in the goals and objectives of the organization? And even if you can you get it in people's job descriptions to say, part of the job description is follow policies and procedures and respect customer privacy, or, perhaps even more, depending on what type of industry you're in, you may need to have some specific clauses in there, so you can say, well, if an employee violates this, it's part of their job description, and so I can write them up. Whereas if you don't have that documented, privacy breaches are still in that kind of nascent stage where it can be hard to try to say after the fact, well, I told you not to do that. And they can say, well, where does it say that in my job description? So taking a lot of those little steps is really important.
Absolutely. In your career, you've worked as general manager. You've worked with employees quite a bit.
Yes.
So, we're talking about some HR, HR topics here of injecting privacy in HR from the very core. How important is it to include privacy awareness during new staff and embedding it in the staff handbook?
Oh, I think it's very important, and I'm actually glad that you mentioned the staff handbook. Alex was mentioning adding clauses to job descriptions, and if that can't happen fast enough, an easy change is to also include it immediately in a handbook update. And I don't know how possible it is in very large companies, but you could have in smaller companies like I've worked in, you can have all the associates sign an updated document and you can file it away with their files. So they said, they've received this new update, they've read it, they've understood it. During onboarding it's an amazing experience because you get to give a general outline of roles and responsibilities and any other relevant information to that new hire. So, and what's nice about a new hire that I've always loved, whether it was while I was running the visitor service centers or I was GM of a cycle shop, etc., was they're new. So they're not coming in with any bias. They have no attachments. They may have those things with their previous companies, but with yours, it's brand new. So if you can make a positive impact on that employee during that onboarding session, then they're going to move forward in that positive thinking. Sorry, they're going to go forward with sort of a positive mentality around, let's say, privacy, and that's also going to start to bleed into the rest of the employees as well as they they're introduced to one another and learn about each other in their departments, etc. So I always really enjoy new employees because I always think it's easier to work with them because they're just new to the job, and I'm sort of repeating myself. So.
I actually love the fact that you talked about, the fact that
Why with these new regulations and Bermuda as a island that mainly does international, the more we can educate individuals coming on board and they advocate for being privacy champions, then the organization is likely to maintain their reputation.
Tracey. So what I've heard here in terms of ways that you can adopt buy-in at all levels, leadership buy-in, top on the list, develop privacy champions, have privacy conversations, be sensitive to the impact of privacy at all levels across the organization, and then include privacy awareness during new staff onboarding and staff handbook. So well done. I mean, I think these are some really helpful bits of advice for organizations to take on board as they're thinking about privacy. We're going to take a quick break, and on our return, we will embark on our final question here, or topic: how to introduce a privacy and cyber program. We'll be right back with you. Yes, welcome back to the Privacy Conversation. I'm here. My name is Joell, and I am one of the partners with the TLC Group of Companies. And I'm here with the Privacy Commissioner of Bermuda, Alexander White, Melanie Fullerton of Walker's Bermuda, as well as the Privacy and Cyber Program. How does an organization introduce that to their teams?
Thank you, Siobhan. We've actually mentioned quite a number of steps already. We've already spoken about ensuring that you have buy-in from your senior leadership. We've already spoken about doing training and awareness so that staff become generally familiar with privacy legislation. But when we're trying to get down to the real nitty-gritty, we really should focus on doing some sort of audit, some sort of data discovery exercise. So it would be beneficial for the organization to understand what type of data it has and what type of data it processes, to then categorize that data so that you know what is really confidential versus what's restricted, what's very sensitive. We've already mentioned to do a review of policies and procedures and then make the necessary amendments. We've spoken about identifying privacy champions, which will help to get the message across and to keep it alive on a day-to-day basis within the organization. I think once you've done those things, then you'll have an understanding of where you are, be able to develop strategies to then fill in the gaps, and then focus on what's next to sort of monitor your program towards complete compliance.
Thank you for that, Jeanette. Melanie, would you like to chime in here?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, those are all the main components. And, we talk about how to get buy-in. For example, in the last question, you can, I would say the sort of first stage is that data classification and data mapping, get each department to do that. And then you kind of review it if you're the data privacy officer. So you can start to embed that, you can start to introduce the cyber privacy and cyber program, as well as getting, stakeholders and management involved. And I think one of the key pieces that's often forgotten about is everyone's like, okay, we've done our data mapping, we've done our data classification, policies and procedures are in place, we're good. And then people forget about the ongoing monitoring aspect of it, the ongoing compliance, and how it's, unfortunately, with any compliance program, I don't think it's a moment in time, but it's got to be evolving with the business of the organization. It's got to evolve with the staff, the number of staff, what business opportunities, what business activities, the business is doing. So it's a constant review, a constant monitoring, and it's sort of a live document. Another thing that we often find we're assisting clients with is continuing to sort of provide support for the day-to-day employee who's engaging with the clients or reviewing files or whatever the task may be, where they're coming into contact with data privacy information, as we found it useful to sort of develop maybe a top 10, or depending on the size of your organization, the top 20 FAQs, and having that document somewhere. So if the client, if an employee is on the phone and a client's asking a question, they might be able to refer to it to give them a bit more confidence as to the answer and the right way to deliver it. So that's a really good way to give employees the comfort that the organization is supporting them in the introduction of a privacy and cyber program, by kind of giving them the pieces of information to help them in their day-to-day job. And then also just to provide them with the contact of the person that they can ask questions to. There's nothing more isolating than sitting at your desk being like, I think I know how to do this, but I just want to double check, and not really knowing who to go to. And again, it's with COVID-19 and everyone's sort of working from home, that can be a bit even more isolating. So just ensuring employees that they can reach out whenever they want to is really important, and would just encourage the ongoing use of that data privacy program. So that would be the only things I would add.
Thank you. Very useful advice that you've provided, Melanie. Alex, how important is a structured and systematic approach to a privacy and cyber program?
I love it when you do this, Siobhan, and you just read my mind, because that is exactly what I wanted to talk about. The way I think about it is the old joke of, how does a snake eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so you have to think about your privacy program in the same way. You're not going to be able to eat it all in one bite. You're going to have to take bite after bite after bite. And I'm a big believer in incremental progress. And what that means is think about what you can do today, but set goals for the future as well. So you're still establishing, where do we want to get? And so if you do a data inventory like Jeanette discussed, and then that helps you decide, okay, well, what type of data do we have? So next we have to think about the risks that are involved. And then once you've thought about the risks, you can think about how to mitigate those risks or what controls to put in place. And you may not be able to do all of that in a day, probably not. And so you set a timeline to say, okay, well, here's the future state we want to get to. What kind of project plan is needed to get to that future state? And so that I think that's just the only way you can do it without making yourself crazy. But to be to somewhat in my interest as well, I appreciate organizations that do that, because if we were having a conversation, if I got a complaint from an individual about an organization's business practices, there's the organization that has none of that on paper, that has none of that written down. And it's like, oh yeah, I thought about that and I knew we had to do that. And I think I was planning on doing it this year, but the year kind of got away from me. Versus the organization that said, well, here's the project plan. We had it outlined for 6 months. We ran into a delay, and so it ran long. And, I'm going to see that as a wonderful show of good faith, that you are really working hard on trying to make this happen. So I strongly recommend those sorts of procedures.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Alex. Brad, how can a privacy officer help with the implementation of a privacy program? And you're on mute, by the way.
I'm not sure if this is directly related, but it's something that I'm really passionate about. So I think it attaches here. I believe in something strongly called servant leadership, and it's a theme that I've been introduced to throughout many organizations, especially in the US. I think actually Walmart is one of the companies that started it and made it very popular. And servant leadership is the idea that you'll never ask someone to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. And almost I guess it could be a fancier way of just saying you should lead by example. So I think a privacy officer, obviously, we all know from past or present work experiences where you have a department manager, or you could say the privacy officer, et cetera. The team is doing everything that they can, but their manager is not. And that's the one that they're supposed to look up to. And that's also the one that's giving directives top down and feeding information, let's say, from corporate or the executive team, however you want to label that. And I just think that the privacy officer in general has to always lead by example. Everyone's going to be looking at you, but it's okay, I think, to make mistakes, but also be aware of them, share the difficulties, be honest, be a little bit more vulnerable. And I think that will help to implement in the plan and make changes throughout the whole corporate culture as well. If you're open, you're vulnerable, and you're sort of just leading by the example.
Thank you for that, Brad. And Tracey, talk about risk-based planning and decision-making. How can we use the risks that we identify to help to move the organization forward? You're on mute, probably.
As always. Yeah, you must have read my mind. I was just thinking about risks. I mean, an organization really needs to just think, what are my critical assets? What are my highest risks? And maybe take that phased approach so that you're dealing with those critical and risk-based assets first. Because as Alex said, you can't deal with everything all at the same time. And also, once you've, the second point I'd like to make in terms of risk, once you've got your asset base and you've done your data classification, you should maybe think about doing privacy by design and default going forward, so that, you know, you can start to function as if you're working towards the global standard. And then the third point I'd like to make, there is out there a number of technology software solutions now that can help you with your data classification, your insider risk, your data discovery, and your labeling. So you don't have to do it all by yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so those are the points I would like to make. Yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you very much. Again, I mean, this has just been an awesome evening of sharing some really helpful information that can really empower business leaders as they start thinking about privacy. And I'm not going to put Alex on the spot and ask him the big question that everyone wants to know. Typos full enactment, but you know, I just want to ask quickly though, Alex, how important is it that organizations start thinking and putting some steps in place when it comes to enhancing their privacy posture?
Yeah, well, I'll answer your unasked question and say I cannot announce a timeline. Of course, PIPA gives authority to government to set the time frame for when the different provisions come into effect. But I'm working closely with the government team so that we can try to find a reasonable transition period. And so it's not going to cause an intense amount of strain on organizations going through this, because there's a lot to do. I mean, if you think back to the elephant we were just talking about, that there's a lot to eat. And so you're going to have to get started. And so I would caution you not to wait. And you know, it's my intention to give organizations as much notice as possible to say, you know, here's what your 6-month or your 3-month runway to PIPA looks like. But I can't guarantee that that's what will happen. And so I would encourage organizations, get started now. These are good business practices, you know, and I talk about that in my article that I mentioned earlier. You know, these can just improve how your business functions, but they will also prepare you for PIPA Day when PIPA does come into effect. And also there's the very pragmatic aspect of it, which is that with the law not yet being in effect, you know, I can't necessarily punish an organization for breaching PIPA because PIPA is not in effect yet. And so you have an opportunity to try to put in your program. And if things aren't perfect, you have time to make those corrections and get things the way they need to be.
Well, thank you so much for that, Alex. And of course, you know, well, here I guess here's our plug. The TLC Group, in addition to the privacy officer courses that we offer, we do have a data privacy champion course coming up. So you can learn a bit more about privacy and become an advocate of privacy. We also have a cybersecurity champion course that will be coming up in April. You can take both courses. Each course is $250 each, but you can take them, you know, you can register for both for a deal of $475. And then we also have our privacy by design and default practitioner. You've seen the commercial. Hopefully we can have that commercial played again at the end for individuals that may have missed it. And then we have our privacy engineer. And Alex, I'm going to put you on the spot again. I did a bit of stalking on your LinkedIn profile, and I saw that last year you received you completed the CDPC. So that's Certified Data Privacy
Solutions
Engineer. Yes. So
yes, that's
yeah,
the first
so
time I've ever heard it out loud pronounced.
Yeah, congratulations.
Living in the times of COVID, you know, I realize now I haven't had too many conversations about
it. Yeah.
But yes, so this is an ISACA certification. And ISACA is an organization, a cybersecurity organization that is famous for doing a variety of security certifications. So they're expanding a little bit into data protection and how that might work. And so it's brand new. The last time I checked, they have not set the final template for what the exams are going to look like. But that's it's been a little while since I've looked at that. So now that I think about it, I'll throw it back to you, because I think you might have something planned for that, for people prepping for it.
Yeah, so we're really excited to introduce our privacy engineer course, and it's really exactly as you've mentioned, Alex. It's preparing people to sit that exam when it's finally introduced. So hopefully, we will see individuals who are interested in taking privacy to another level. Maybe you have interest in IT and in cyber. You'd like to combine your interest into a study and a certification. Well, the CDIPSI is an awesome way to demonstrate your expertise in privacy by design, in privacy and in cybersecurity combined. So we are going to be rolling out that course coming up. I believe it's in April, and you can register for that course right now. So those of you who are thinking about privacy, note that in the description of the live stream video, you will be able to see the links to our courses, and you can have a read on what that is going to look like. So very exciting. At the end of this week, so this entire week, of course, we're really focused on privacy awareness. At the end of the week, we will have sessions talking about privacy careers and privacy courses. And so we'll talk more about those courses at that time. So now we've come to the wrap up, and we'd like to thank everyone for your time, to the panelists for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your insights, and for all of the viewers. Thank you for joining us as well. We have on the screen here two main areas of focus when developing a business case. The strength of data privacy and protection is increasingly important for customers, as well as privacy breaches, which goes hand in hand with Melanie's point. It can be very costly and can really bring an organization down. So it's in your best interest, as Alex mentioned, not to wait what I affectionately call when the light switches on. You want to take some steps as soon as possible to start thinking about what that business case is going to be and how to inject privacy at every layer of your organization. 5 things to consider when adopting buy-in for privacy enhancement across your organization. So they're listed there. Leadership buy-in, developing your privacy champions. Again, we're rolling out a privacy champion course. You can enroll team members or your staff on that course so that they better understand privacy, they better understand PIPA and some global legislations. Of course, GDPR is viewed as the gold standard at the moment. So we do cover some bits of that in the Privacy Champion course. You want to introduce privacy conversations. So we've given you a start here. We've given you some food for thought so that you can go and take some of these conversations back to work or amongst your team or amongst your colleagues. You want to be sensitive to the impact of privacy at all levels and across the organization. My experience, often individuals in different departments may feel that the organization hasn't considered how privacy would impact their department or the way they work, the functionality. So you really want to be sensitive and think about how privacy will affect different teams and different departments. And then lastly, we talked a lot about HR and injecting privacy awareness from the very start of people joining your organization. So for onboarding. And then to keep it going and to have a reference point, as Alex mentioned, you want to think about adding it in your staff handbook. And then lastly, ways to introduce a structured and systematic approach for a robust privacy and cybersecurity security program. Again, like a broken record, you can go so far if you can get some buy-in from top management from the start. You will need to think about appointing a privacy officer, risk influence planning and decision-making, up-to-date privacy and cyber policies, recorded and structured training and awareness, board executive oversight reviews and lessons learned. Every experience you have, every lesson is an opportunity to enhance your organization, to improve your organization even more. But you will miss that opportunity if you do not take advantage of the lessons learned. And then ongoing monitoring and improvement. You've heard the panelists talk about that. It's vitally important that this is not a checkbox exercise. It's not as if you can just become compliant and that's it. You really want to think about, ongoing monitoring and improvement. So we'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. Again, we have a number of courses and a number of events taking place this week. We're celebrating Privacy Awareness Week. Privacy Awareness Day is actually on Thursday. And Alex, I believe you have something planned on Thursday, at least with the Bermuda chapter of the Bermuda chapter for IAPP. Would you like to talk a bit about that before we jet off this evening?
Yes, thanks, Siobhan. And you might not be surprised that I'll plug my blog one more time because I have the details posted up on my blog where you can see all the events for the week. But of course, I'll be speaking with Melanie and another TLC team member tomorrow on health privacy issues. In addition to, we'll be, as a separate event, we'll be talking to some school kids. My office is sponsoring student attendance at an online privacy conference called the CPDP, the Computers, Privacy, and Data Protection Conference. So if you know of a student who might be interested in attending a virtual conference, please do get in touch. And again, the details are on my website. And then Thursday, in addition to around midday, carefully scheduled to avoid TLC's session, we'll be doing a 1-hour live Q&A on Twitter. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that people might have if you want to go back and forth, and we'll have a custom hashtag and all that good stuff. And then after hours on Thursday, we'll be having a less formal event where we can all just sit around and chat and talk about different issues. And if I can make one more plug, because I know you talk about privacy careers and what those options are. Well, at the moment on my website, I have a careers page, and we have a couple of opportunities posted. One of them, the Assistant Commissioner for Operations, is closing on Friday. So fittingly, Data Privacy Week is a great time to get your privacy application in, and I'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Alex, we do have a question from someone viewing from our YouTube page. Can the commissioner let us know where the commission itself is with its ability to enforce the act with the expected increases in breach reporting, requests, etc., as businesses work towards compliance?
Yes, so the commission at the moment is a very lean organization of one. And so it's just me at the moment. So the commission is wherever I am at the moment. Now, in all seriousness, we have an office building or an office in the Maxwell Roberts building, which is at 1 Church Street. So that's the corner of Church and Parleville. Though at the moment,
street from the 24/7, yeah?
You're exactly
Yes.
right. That's right.
Okay.
Though at the moment, because of COVID, we're not in the office very often. We're working from home a little bit more. So the best thing you can do is send an email to us at privcom@privacy.bm. All that contact information is available on the website. And a lot of these, the other things you discuss about breach reporting and things like that, they will come into effect. There's not a mechanism for that yet, but it's coming.
Thank you for that. Again, thank you everyone for joining. To the panel, does anyone have any final remarks before we jet off?
Great conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it very much. Anyone else? No? Okay. Well, thank you again. Have a wonderful evening, and we hope that we can welcome you on some of our Privacy Awareness Week events. Have a good evening.